Sean Diddy Combs is back in court last Thursday to find out what's going on with his criminal case while he waits for the decision on his third bail request in appeals court. We may hear less from his lawyers as the trial for his sex trafficking case gets closer. During the court session, we learned about their efforts to get a key piece of evidence against him thrown out. We also learned about the trial date and the evidence found in the hip-hop mogul's home. We also talked about how his family is helping him. Here is an outline of what happened in court and a lot more. Let's start with Sean Combs and his big defense team. They went back to court on Thursday to face yet another new judge, Arun Subramanian. He will be in charge of Combs' hearing, which is set to happen in May 2025. Another interesting thing is why bail wasn't talked about this week. The Court of Appeals is in charge of the third attempt at bail, even though a petition for it was made. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals will decide if Combs should be freed on bail. Alexandra Shapiro, Combs' lawyer, asked the Second Circuit for pretrial freedom earlier this week. She made that point clear, but she also claimed that Sean Combs shouldn't have to pay bail or defend himself in order to get out of jail. She said that Combs was arrested right after he was charged, even though he had been arrested before and his actions had been publicly reported and police knew about them. He has almost no chance of running away. He is a U.S. citizen, 54 years old, and the father of 7 children. He is also one of the most famous and powerful people in the world. The attention that's been paid to Sean Combs' arrest has changed how his bail position is seen. Even though he was ready to agree to tight rules that would keep him from running away or getting hurt, he was not freed until his trial. Indeed, Combs suggested a $50 million bail package, putting up his home in Miami and his mother's home as security. He promised that he would stay in touch with the police and only talk to certain people, and even suggested that he hire a security team to keep an eye on his house if he were put under house arrest. Combs asked for bail, but 2 judges turned it down. He has been in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn since September 16th. One reason he is being held prisoner is because of his supposed power and reach. The prosecutors say that Combs tampered with witnesses and scared them, but his lawyers don't agree with this. He admitted that he had talked about the civil cases he was facing, but he insisted that he didn't know that the Southern District of New York was looking into anything. In his appeal motion, he says that as soon as he found out about the probe, he made sure to stop talking to those people. The move says that even though the government gave a vague account of its interactions with 2 grand jury witnesses, it did not show any proof of threats or intimidation. Only one witness and another witness who was called more than once were named as having been contacted 14 times by Mr. Combs. The lawyer for the defense made it clear that these meetings did not involve any witness tampering or obstruction. In this case, one of the witnesses got in touch with Combs, not the other way around. "I'm a grand jury witness," she told him. When Combs told his defense team about this contact, they told him not to talk to her again, which he did. Shapiro said that the prosecution has not done enough to keep Combs in jail until the trial. After some time, an update was sent to the court saying that the bail request had been sent to a panel of 3 judges, but their request to be freed right away while they waited for a decision on the bail motion was turned down. The motion to seal, on the other hand, was approved. To sum up, Combs won't be out right away. Before making a choice, he has to wait for the judges to look over the reasons. When Diddy heard that his $50 million bail package had been turned down, he broke down in tears in front of the whole courtroom. The music mogul was used to living in homes and private jets, so hearing that he would now have to spend his time in a small jail cell hit him hard. His bail plan was his last chance to get out of jail after being arrested. Diddy, yes, the Diddy we all know, was ready to do anything to get him out of jail. His suggested bail amount of $50 million was so huge that it left everyone speechless. His lawyers came up with this huge deal, which basically included everything valuable Diddy owned in order to get him out of the situation, even if only for a short time. The first thing he did was offer an unbelievable $50 million in bail. That was just the start. Diddy went all out and put up his $48 million mansion in Miami, complete with all of its high-end comforts. He also offered his private jet, which is probably the same one he uses for last-minute trips around the world. And if that wasn't bad enough, Diddy included his family. His mom and other cousins co-signed the bail package, which shows how much they wanted to help him get out of jail. He also agreed to give up his passport, which means he won't be going on a tropical vacation, and to be detained at home. It was almost like he was saying, "Look, I'll stay home, just don't make me stay in jail, but there's more." His lawyer made the deal even better by suggesting that he take weekly drug tests to show that he was clean, that he keep a visitor log every night to see who was coming and going, and that he allow only male visitors. No women would be able to visit him besides his mom, children, and their mothers. Diddy was ready to follow any rule that was given to him as long as it kept him out of jail. He did everything he could to stay free. Even with all of this, the judge looked at the large bail package and said, nope, why, this is where things got tough. There was a good case made by the prosecution that Diddy wasn't someone you could trust to stay out of trouble. Some troubling facts from his past were brought up, which made a pretty bad picture of him. There were a lot of worries about some old text messages from Diddy that, well, you wouldn't want anyone to see in court. One text message from 2016 stood out, and it was pretty scary. The video showed Diddy with his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura at a hotel right before this. In the message, he was completely scared and almost begged for help. "Someone please call me. The police are here, and I have 6 kids with me. You're going to leave me by myself." It was a clear sign of how desperate and dishonest he could be when things were going badly. That wasn't even the worst part. He is said to have paid the hotel $50,000 to get rid of the security video that showed him throwing glass vases at Cassie. When you're trying to show a judge that you won't change proof or witnesses, that kind of power move doesn't look good. The judge also had to think about Diddy's huge wealth and power, which gave him many chances to hide things like proof or anything else that could put his trial at risk. Being honest, someone with that much money can do a lot behind the scenes. The court was worried that he would use his power to stop the case from going forward or even try to scare the people involved. Also, let's not forget that Diddy has been in trouble before. In the past, he has been accused of everything from bribes to getting in the way of the law. It's not just wishful thinking that people are worried about him messing with evidence this time. In fact, Diddy's case makes a lot more sense when you look at other high-profile cases. Let's look at Harvey Weinstein. In 2017, he was turned down for bail, even though he was ready to put up millions of dollars. Why? It was the same thing that bothered the court getting in the way of justice. Afterward, there's Jeff Epstein, as well as a big bail package, but the judge turned it down because he thought the man would use his money to either get away or mess with witnesses. When it comes to Diddy, the courts didn't want to take any chances because they've seen this happen before. Why the music mogul couldn't handle the news. When Diddy found out in court that his $50 million bail offer was turned down and knew he wouldn't be going home, it was like seeing someone run headfirst into a wall. People who saw him said he looked completely shaken, like all the stress he had been feeling for weeks had just dropped. Think about a man who has been living in style for decades. And being in charge all the time now means just barely keeping it together. He wasn't just mad, he was crushed. People who were there said they saw the look on his face as the judge gave the decision. His normal calmness went away, and he was filled with disbelief. According to some, they could see him shaking, and it looked like he was about to pass out as the judge spoke. Did he really fall down? He clearly couldn't handle it, whether it was because he was shocked, stressed, or just emotionally worn out. It was clear right away that the truth of his situation was hitting him harder than he had thought. Paramedics were called. This wasn't just a physical response, it meant more than that. Diddy had a life full of fame, money, and comfort, but now he had to face the hard truth that his days of private jets and red carpets were over, at least for now. He had to deal with the truth of being locked up in a cold, small cell. That must have been unbearable for someone who had only ever been in pain during a flight delay or a bad report. From living in a $48 million home to a tiny 6 by 9-foot jail cell must be very hard on the mind. How can someone who has lived in such comfort even begin to understand that? Now, instead of silk sheets, he was sleeping on a thin mattress that the jail gave him. This is probably when it all hit home for Diddy. He has always been in charge of his job, how he looks, and even the people around him. But he was in a spot where his money and power wouldn't help him anymore. That's a big blow to the ego for anyone. That being said, Diddy thought it was a terrible nightmare. He wasn't in charge anymore. He was now stuck with a system that he couldn't change or trick. This problem couldn't be solved with money, swagger, or charm, and that must have been very scary to realize. Don't forget that Diddy has been in trouble with the law before, but he's always been able to get out of it. He seemed to have a golden touch. There would be scandals and charges against him, but he usually got away with little trouble. Think about the famous bar shooting in 1999. Diddy and Jennifer Lopez, who was his girlfriend at the time, were arrested after 3 people were hurt. In some way, Diddy got away with it while his pupil got caught. A lot of times, he's found a way to get around the legal system, but this time feels different. It's not just a fight in a bar or a small scandal. He could go to prison for life if he is found guilty of these crimes. For the first time, it's clear that Diddy knows he might not be able to talk his way out of this. The thought of going to prison for years or even decades must have been very heavy on his mind, which is why he lost it in court. For someone who is used to living like a king, the thought of being locked up in one of the most infamous prisons in the country is terrifying. When word got out that Diddy had a breakdown, people in the music business were shocked and very worried. The news shocked famous people who used to think of him as an invincible businessman. Hip-hop fans have always thought of Diddy as a man who is bigger than life. He has been through scandals, legal battles, and the ups and downs of the business, and has always been able to get back on his feet. But this time, a lot of people were not sure if he could get better. People's responses on social media were very different. Some people showed their support, while others were skeptical and asked if this was the start of Diddy's downfall. It's one thing to have a scandal hurt your image, but for Diddy, who built his empire on being strong, unbeatable, and in charge, this fall was more than just a physical setback. In a stark way, it showed how his world was falling apart around him. This couldn't be fixed by money or fame. More and more people are worried about Diddy's life in jail. People with a lot of attention, like him, go through a special kind of mental stress when they go to jail. His life has been very comfortable, but he is also constantly being watched and attacked or praised for everything he does. He has had a group of people with him throughout his work. He has a lot of loyal friends and a lot of money to make any criticism less painful. All of that is gone now that I'm in jail. For someone like Diddy, being alone isn't just being physically alone, it can be very hard. It's about losing everything that made him unique in the eyes of other people. He must feel like the walls are closing in on him while he is locked up in a cold cell with nothing to think about. Because of this, the police are not taking any risks and are keeping a close eye on him all the time, so that he doesn't hurt himself. The Metropolitan Detention Center, MDC, is known for being one of the worst bars in the country, and things don't look good for Diddy there. It has a reputation for being very harsh, and the conditions are truly horrible. There is almost no hygiene, and prisoners often go days without having a proper way to clean themselves. It gets very cold in the winter and very hot in the summer in the cells. There have even been accounts of power outages that leave the facility in the dark and without heat or hot water for days at a time. Imagine being locked up in a cold cell with nothing but cold concrete and steel around you. You would be freezing under a thin blanket. It's a terrible dream. The overload makes things even worse. MDC is notorious for cramming far too many prisoners into small areas. You can't be private. You can't relax for a second, and there's nowhere to breathe. Someone like Diddy, who is used to having a lot of space in his homes, must feel like they can't breathe in this small space. To make things even worse, he is being held alone in the Special Housing Unit SHU, which is for prisoners who are seen as a high risk to themselves or others. This isn't just any jail area. That's where they keep the most dangerous people. Diddy is locked up in a small 6 by 9 foot cell right now. Think about that. A man who used to live in a $48 million house now spends 23 hours a day in a room that's smaller than most closets. He only has a thin cot, a small writing desk, and a steel toilet and sink that go together. One blanket, one uniform, and a few basic things from the commissary are all he has with him. There is neither luxury nor ease here. It is cold, hard, and lonely. The toilet in his cell only flushes 3 times a day, which makes things even worse. There are places like the MDC that do this all the time to keep prisoners from flooding their rooms. It might seem strange. This is just another sign for Diddy of how far he's dropped from his life of unimaginable wealth. As long as he is in solitary confinement, he can only leave his cell for an hour a day. He can only go to a small yard with a fence to stretch his legs. Other than the guards who watch over him, he doesn't talk to any other prisoners and can't talk to anyone outside of prison. The difference between Diddy's old life and his present one could not be bigger. He used to fly on private jets, go to fancy parties, and live in huge homes just a few months ago. His whole life has been boiled down to a tiny jail cell with barely any space to move. He's gone from living a life of endless wealth to the worst possible situation. That change can't be fixed with money. Right now, Diddy's cell is not at all like the places he's used to being. This place doesn't have silk sheets or fancy furniture. He has to make do with metal furniture and a blanket that probably feels more like sandpaper than anything soft. To make things even worse, Diddy is also very worried about his safety. Because he is famous and is being charged with serious crimes, he is a good target in jail. Some people in jail think that beating up a famous inmate like Diddy is a big deal and something to be proud of. Already, his lawyers are scared about his safety and have tried to get him moved to a different prison in New Jersey where they think he would be safer. He is being charged with horrible things that are very scary for someone his size. This means that Diddy might spend the rest of his life in jail if he is found guilty. But what do these charges really mean, and how did things get so bad? In essence, the charge against him is like what you'd see against someone running a criminal business, like a mafia boss, but with his own twist. In the case of Diddy, the police say he used his businesses, music empire, contacts, and huge wealth to hide or even plan some very bad illegal activities. Diddy wasn't just a little interested in crime. He was reportedly running a big business and using his power to control other people. A lot of people think of organized crime when they hear these accusations, and that's exactly what authorities are getting at. People say that Diddy's kingdom was more than just music and fashion. They say it had a much darker side where all kinds of illegal things happened. This isn't just about a few isolated events either. Based on the charge, this behavior has been going on for a long time. It's not just about what Diddy did either. People say that he set up these upsetting events with the help of his businesses, his employees, and even his security team. These get-togethers weren't just for having fun, they were also about taking charge. Several reports say that some of the women who went to these events felt like they had no choice. Diddy is said to have forced them to take part, using fear or threats to stop giving them money if they didn't follow through. There are also claims of witness tampering and intimidating. It might seem easy to shut people up when you have as much money and power as Diddy does. In 2016, Diddy got into trouble because of something that happened with his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura. It is said that he abused her in a hotel and then bribed the staff to erase the security video. Later, he was scared and sent Cassie a desperate text message telling her to call him right away because the cops were closing in. This is where things began to go badly for him. The prosecution used this event to show that Diddy wasn't above changing proof or making his victims feel scared. Let's tell the truth. There are times when having millions of dollars makes it possible to pay people off or scare them. That's exactly what the police are worried about. Even more serious claims are being made about his business. The government says Diddy didn't do it by himself. Instead, his whole business empire, including Bad Boy Records and all of his other businesses, was part of a criminal group that helped carry out these illegal actions. They even said that Diddy's workers helped him by setting up flights, finding women, and making sure that everything went smoothly, which is obviously illegal. People in his circle, from security guards to assistants, are said to have helped hide these actions for as long as possible. In the past, when famous people or strong people face charges like these, the legal consequences can be very bad. Many of these scandals can be seen in Diddy's position. In the same way that Harvey Weinstein used to be seen as unbeatable in Hollywood, Diddy was seen as untouchable in the music business. When people did speak out, though, it was like a dam burst and a flood of charges came after. The two men tried to control the story with their money and power, but in the end, the truth came out. It's possible that Diddy is going in the same direction. The fact that Jennifer Lopez and Young Miami are involved changes things in a way that was not expected. This story is so complicated that more than just Diddy's life is in danger. Young Miami and Jennifer Lopez, also known as J-Lo, could also be in a lot of trouble with the law. Not only Diddy is involved in this mess, some of the biggest names in showbiz are too. J-Lo and Young Miami are right in the middle of it all. Now let's go back to the famous 1999 school shooting. When that happened, Diddy was dating J-Lo, and the two of them were always seen together. On December 27, 1999, they were at Club New York to celebrate the release of Shine's record, Who Was DIY. And fight quickly turned what was supposed to be a fun night into chaos, and 3 people were hurt. Diddy and J-Lo eventually ran away from the scene. At the time, it looked like Diddy might be in for some real trouble for what happened, but as usual, he was able to avoid a bullet. He was found not guilty of all charges in 2001, even those related to possession and bribes. Shine, on the other hand, wasn't as lucky. His 10-year prison sentence was the result of being blamed for the killing. Strangely, reports have been going around for years that J-Lo may have had a bigger part in the shooting than anyone thought. Could you picture? Should that be true, it means she may have helped hide a crime. She could be brought back into the probe now that these new claims have been made. J-Lo's business has gone through the roof since that night. She's a worldwide star known for her style, songs, and acting. Most likely, a lot of people have forgotten that she had something to do with the 1999 killing. Things could get very serious now that this new case says she is involved. We're also talking about what might happen legally. If the judge looks into the case again and finds proof that she obstructed justice, she could be charged herself. It's no longer just how people see her, it's also about whether she can properly stay away from this situation. What about Young Miami? She is being accused of things that could get her into a lot of trouble. For those who don't know, Young Miami, whose real name is Keisha Brownlee, was Diddy's on-again, off-again girlfriend for a while. As a power couple in the hip-hop scene, they made a lot of news. That being said, her link to Diddy may have gotten her into more trouble than she thought. According to one of the cases against Diddy, Young Miami is thought to have done some bad things. She is said to have helped Diddy move a dangerous synthetic substance on a private jet, which is the most shocking claim. This is what is said to have happened. D.I. needed the item for a party at the Water Music Festival in Virginia in April 2023. When his regular source forgot to send it, it is said that Diddy's team called Young Miami and asked her to fly the item from Miami to Virginia. The case says that she did so. It's not a small matter if this claim turns out to be true. It's a very bad act. Going from one state to another with illegal goods could get Young Miami into a lot of trouble, especially since the case says she was involved in trafficking. What does she think about all of this? In a very public way, she has defended Diddy, saying that her interactions with him were very different and that she can't speak on the claims others have made against him. She said, "I met Diddy when everyone was giving him flowers and a party. I really feel like everyone is out to kill me for it." But there's a catch. By supporting Diddy in public, young Miami may have put herself in the spotlight without meaning to. She could be charged with a crime too if the police start looking into her possible link to Diddy's claimed illegal activities. This brings us to the possible legal consequences for both Jay Miami with Low and Young. If the claims in these cases are proven to be true, both women could be charged as taking part in Diddy's crimes. The killing in 1999 is like a scary memory for J-Lo that won't go away. People were already guessing that she might have something to do with it, so it wouldn't be hard for officials to reopen the case and bring her back into court. Things are even more difficult for young Miami. She could face a long time in jail if she is found guilty of transporting illegal items for Diddy. Also, don't forget that young Miami is still working to make it in the music business. Why is this so crazy? Because Diddy's core problems have spread so far. It's no longer just about him. The people around him are also getting caught up in the chaos. The fact that J-Lo and young Miami were connected to Diddy most likely seemed like something personal to them. But now those connections are really putting their careers at risk. This is a stark reminder of how quickly things can go badly when you're with someone who is being accused of such major crimes. We're not sure how this will all play out for Jay. One thing is clear about Low and young Miami. They won't be able to stay out of the public eye for long. People are already forming views, and things could get messy if the law gets involved. Both women have had very successful lives, but this could be the hardest thing they've ever had to do. Their careers and reputations could be in great danger. That is a risk they can't both take in Hollywood, where looks are everything. There was a lot going on last Thursday in the Southern District of New York, so let me tell you about it. There was a lot going on in front of the new judge, Ron Subramaniam, and we finally got a possible trial date, May 5th, 2025. It's not quite there yet, but there are a number of pretrial conferences that are set to happen before that. It makes you wonder if Combs is hedging his bets. He seems to know that if he's going to spend a lot of time in jail, he should aim for the trial to happen as soon as possible. When someone is charged with a crime, the situation changes based on whether they are free or in jail. People who are out most of the time like to take their time. They want to make sure there is a full probe and not jump to any conclusions. But if you're in jail, you want to get out as soon as possible because the time is running out. I think that May 2025 might be a bit too optimistic for this case because there is so much proof and the defense needs to do so much discovery. So what really happened in court, saying that date in May was their goal? What if, though, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals lets him go free before then? Then could he say, you know that May date no longer works for me, let's move it to May 2026 instead? That's an interesting question. Would that be too clear, or could he come up with a good reason for asking? I've always thought Combs came to New York with a plan, so explain why you think that. I think he's been trying to help in order to get out of jail on bail and maybe be sent home for a year or two. So he could make the hearing last as long as possible without being found guilty. Could he then try to get the trial date pushed back if he gets pretrial release? Courts do allow cases to be continued, but they tend to be very strict about keeping trials on time. It's important for him to give a good reason for any delay, like having to find an expert witness or a witness not being available right now. They will have to come up with smart reasons. One idea is to say that the discovery process has taken longer than expected. But there's another point of view to think about. Does this sense of urgency show that they're sure of their defense? They are, after all, saying they are ready to go to trial. They said they would only need a week to give their defense, which could include questioning witnesses for the government, and maybe even calling some sex workers to say that everything was okay. It's a risky plan that shows they think they can get someone found not guilty. However, rushing to trial might not always show trust. It's sometimes a secret move meant to surprise the prosecutors. Remember that the government has to prove its case. They might not be ready to make their case strong if they're rushing to find witnesses and proof by May 2025. One more thing is that there might be extra costs. What if a new charge comes out that is stronger? That would definitely push back the date because more evidence would need to be found and the prosecutors would have more time to get ready. The topic of discovery was one of the main ones talked about in court that day. To keep things fair, both sides must share any proof that is important to the case. Assistant U.S. Attorney Emily Johnson told the judge that they are going through an unbelievable amount of computer evidence right now. There were raids in March on Combs mansions in Miami and Los Angeles, as well as a private airport in Florida. 96 electronic devices were taken away. 8 of those from Miami had more than 90 terabytes of info on them. Think about your phone to get a sense of that. The amount of data it could hold is 2 terabytes. The sheer size of 90 terabytes is amazing, and it's a big reason why finding takes so long. Large amounts of proof are stored on electronic devices, such as computers, cell phones, and tablets. When you say that there are over 90 terabytes of data on just one external hard drive, you understand that this is not a small job. One device might need weeks to just process that info. It adds up quickly if you have a lot of gadgets. You can print out about 20,000 to 30,000 pages of info from a smaller device by itself. That makes it very clear how long it will take the prosecutors to look through everything. Before they can give it over, they have to carefully look over it all to make sure it's useful and doesn't have any private data on it. After that, it is up to the defense to look over the evidence and decide if they need anything else based on what they find. It might take months, if not longer, if they really want to look over the findings in this case. But discovery isn't the only thing being talked about at this meeting. The defense said that someone from Homeland Security had leaked a famous video of Sean Combs allegedly hitting his ex-girlfriend Cassandra Venture. This was another controversial problem. Back in 2016. That video was shown on CNN in May, just 2 months after Combs' houses were searched. Combs' lawyer said that this video and other alleged leaks have caused damaging and highly prejudicial press before the trial, which could taint the jury pool and make Mr. Combs' right to a fair trial less secure. It was very hard for prosecutor Emily Johnson to believe these accusations, letting the judge know that their efforts to keep an important piece of evidence from the trial were without any reason. It was her claim that none of those supposed leaks came from the prosecution team. Both sides are trying to deal with court challenges and media attention, as this back and forth shows how complicated things are getting in this case. Diddy is really suffering from the pain, fear, and mental stress of being locked up alone. If things don't get better soon, Diddy might get the worst wake-up call he's ever had from going to jail. Think about what you think about this. Leave your thoughts in the box below.